Okay, guys, thanks for joining for today. We're going to have a really good discussion on something that Seth and I both really like and are passionate about, and that's the sneaker history of Tim Hardaway, who was one of the big players when we were kids. So, Seth, why don't you tell us a little bit about Timmy and how his game went?
Yeah. So basically, the brief backstory, Tim Hardaway is one of my all-time favorite NBA players, the OG king of the crossover. Today, interestingly, is Allen Iverson's 50th birthday. Interestingly, we didn't coordinate this at all. So when we talk about the crossover, obviously Iverson is synonymous. However, he was not the originator of the crossover.
And I believe that's actually his Instagram name, isn't it?
OG king of the crossover, UTEP two-step, uh, and that is none other than Hall of Famer Tim Hardaway. I'm originally from Miami, born and raised in South Florida. Love the Heat. I'm a Sixer fan first, but Miami is like my second favorite team if I could choose one back in the day. And Timmy really resonated and helped that Miami team make it to the next level with the Riley years. And I argue that the Hardaway, whether it's the Hardaway signature or just the Hardaway sneaker history, the kicks that Timmy wore at the time throughout the 90s career, his career in that time, ranks right up there, in my opinion. And we're going to try to, illustrate that today. So,
I think his best season was with Miami. I think he was like fourth in MVP voting.
yep. Uh, I have to check. First team All NBA. I believe it was '97 when they played MJ and the Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals. But that was peak Miami. I mean, you had Timmy, you had Alonzo Mourning, you had PJ Brown, you had Jamal, you had Thunder Dan Marley, you had a great Isaac Austin, you had a great cast. That was a solid Miami Heat team, and then the playoff battles with New York. That's priceless.
Yeah, New York versus
Um,
Miami.
yeah, and then of course you can't go without talking about or remembering some of the kicks involved.
So, what's like the
Yeah,
most iconic Tim Hardaway shoe? Like when someone says Tim Hardaway, what shoe do you think of?
and okay, it may be against popular opinion, but in my mind, I'm going to go with the Air Bakin, and I'm going to tell you why. First team All NBA, Tim Hardaway, probably his best individual year, and the team, Pat Riley, president, top down, had their best performance. They beat the Knicks in game 7 of the second round. Tim Hardaway went off, I think, almost 40 points in that game in this particular model. So he was shining. The team was running on all cylinders. He had one of his best individual careers, career seasons, I should say. Um, and it's a great model. It's a timeless model,
It's a controversial model.
and it's a highly controversial. That's another topic that we could probably get into as well. See, there's levels to this. There's like little branches that you can go off of on literally each pair, and we will hope to do that today. So I think what we'll do, no rhyme or reason. Just I guess I'll mention just a couple of the pairs that we brought today for those, and I'm hoping that maybe some of these are new to the viewers. They may not have seen these before, but what we brought today is a variety of various Tim Hardaway player samples or sneakers models that he wore, maybe in a different colorway. And I want to start with the Bacon. This is the original 1997 Air Bakin. As Bijan said, this is a very controversial pair, and we can talk just briefly about it in just a minute. But what sets this part separately from the general release version is it's all about the details. And if you look closely, you can see the number 10 stitched on the heel tab, and all of Timmy's PE pairs. This is a PE that was made for Timmy, not worn, but made for him in his size 12 and a half. You see his grandmother's initials, the late Minnie E. Eubanks. All of Timmy's pairs had his grandmother's initials because his grandma raised him, and needless to say, she did a superb job raising him on court.
And if you look at the shoes that he wore that weren't branded, he would write it on MEE by hand with Sharpie or whatever.
Yep. I believe the first pair that he wore that featured stitched MEE was the Air Go in '95 when he played for the Golden State Warriors just prior to his trade to Miami. As an aside, I actually know who owns that particular pair, dead stock size 12, with original box, and that is a grail. I try to use the word grail very specifically, not just for, not everything is a grail, but Timmy really does strike a chord with me for many reasons. 6 foot guard, small stature, like Iverson. He had no fear. He would go right down, dribble drive. He had a beautiful game. He could take you to the rim. He could hit the three. So he had a very polished, well-rounded game. And his sneakers showcase that flame and the fire. So Bacon is the first pair in my mind, not a signature.
Not a signature.
Interestingly, technically speaking, it's not a Tim Hardaway signature, but in my mind, that is the first pair when you think of Hardaway that I'm going to gravitate towards. What do you think?
So to me, the pair is the T-Bug, but we'll talk about that one later. But you said a certain word that I think is important. You said flame, right? So Miami's logo, flame. And then what does this shoe not have that it could have? The yellow laces.
That's true.
So
different color lace.
they came with
sure.
yellow laces, right?
Yeah.
But maybe the PE version didn't have it, or it came with both, or they were discarded. Who knows what happened to them? But yeah, like this shoe had yellow laces, and it was supposed to be a flame. If you look at the tongue logo here, there is a flame, the AIR and flame logo, which created an issue for religious reasons with some religious followers.
Yeah.
They petitioned Nike to get rid of that on the shoes. So Nike actually recalled the Bacons, and they slapped a sticker on the back to get rid of it. And I think the tongue too, right?
I have one pair. I didn't bring them, but I believe the tongue has either a patch or something to conceal it. Definitely the heel tab, and sometimes over time it actually separates. Yeah.
So they covered up the AIR and flames to protect the religious beliefs of the people that were upset about it. And then on the backside, on this shoe, it says MEE. The backside of this one may say MEE, but again, it had the AIR when it came out. So this PE version had ME, which would have been compliant back then.
Yeah.
Ironically. Okay, so for me, I love this shoe. It has yellow laces. That's the one thing I wish it had.
Yeah. It's a really minor point, and I'm glad that Bijan caught it. So Timmy, for whatever reason, decided to wear black laces with this model. The model that was made for the public had bright, I believe it's like orange-ish colored laces, which is a great contrast, but I actually prefer that. It's just
the muted.
Yeah, it's just more of like Miami colorway in a way.
Well, I like the yellow because it matches the tip of that flame, that lighter color. But it brings up another point. This shoe, it was kind of part of a series, which was like the flame, the grill, the BQ, like that whole mantra.
And they all had to have the patch.
Yeah, so we should do a whole episode on that.
That's a good idea. I actually do have the grill, and the flap has partially detached, so you could see it. As a total aside, Carmelo Anthony, probably Hall of Famer, one of the greatest pure shooters, scorers in league history. The Bacon is part of Carmelo Anthony's young sneaker history. I don't remember if it was Caleb Goodberger, but I've seen a picture of Carmelo in his youth wearing a pair of Bacons. And just to go for the Triple Crown, even Ralph Lifshitz, who is the creator of Ralph Lauren clothing, very famous photo of Mr. Ralph walking out in Manhattan wearing a blazer and wearing a pair of Bacon. So this pair is really interesting, very provocative. From a tech standpoint, this is quintessential 90s Air Max. You got the concealed, or I should say visible, chamber, Max 2 heel with encapsulated forefoot. You have good ankle support and padding and protection. It's technically not a signature, but this is an upper echelon model. I mean, and then of course you could wear this on the tennis court, non-marking, durable rubber compound outsole.
Was it Avar's?
I believe the Bacon was Avar's. I am almost certain that it was. Eric had his hands on so many models back in the day, but nonetheless.
Another thing I like is the cutouts. They have like the aerated sides, and then the red is almost like a flame. It really meets that like bacon and fire, and
you're cooking. He would cook his opponents in this, literally.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the next shoe is 1.0, which also has those cutouts.
Yep. Absolutely, and you know what I think we'll do? Let's so this is spring playoffs, 97. I'm gonna go out of order, but there's no, rules. It's kinda like Lebowski and bowling, there are no rules kind of thing. So, this is 97. Let's go 97. We've talked about the turbulence before, so, running on all cylinders just for, accuracy state, we'll briefly allude to it again. This is a classic. Um, of course, Aaron Cooper design. So the Turbulence flight obviously has sneaker lure because it's never been retroed, although I've argued for a long time that it should. And our friends at Undefeated, Bruzy, if you're listening, watching, this definitely would be something I think that would do very well today.
This would look great in that undefeated Jordan 4 colorway, like a
Nice.
olive with some orange
Mhm.
hints.
Yep. And like I said, this is another classic Aaron Cooper design. I've spoken to Aaron about it before. It's definitely a banger, a head turner. You see the patent leather. So in terms of Hardaway history, Timmy wore this particular model and colorway in the '97 All-Star game in Cleveland. And so again, very versatile pair. Many players wore it back in the day, very lightweight, and it needs to be discussed. Probably not the most significant or the most popular model that Timmy wore that would come to mind, but I'm sorry, it has to be mentioned, in the mix.
Yes,
So,
Turbulence is great. This was the shoe that Nike made to try and court Allen Iverson. They had that Concord 11 patent leather and white look, and AI wore the Concord. So this is something that has been talked about a lot, but this is a great shoe.
and of course, happy 50th birthday, AI. This could have been. Imagine that. And you know something? You're a Nike guy, big Nike guy. However, if you had to choose as an aside, that's the thing about Bijan and I, like we can go on tangents, but as a quick aside, since it is Iverson's birthday, we are talking a little bit about as an aside AI history. But if you could buy one pair of Reeboks,
It's easy. Reebok question. Best Reebok ever made. That's my personal opinion.
so you in hindsight, you think he made the right choice by going with
I think the Reebok question is a better looking shoe than the Turbulence. And that's a disagreement between us.
okay,
But I think it's because there's also a little more history with me in the question than there was with me in the Turbulence. But
nice.
yeah, I love the Reebok question. I have a lot of them
There you
actually.
go.
So that was the '97 All Star game, and
Yeah.
these are something related to the '98 All Star game.
Yeah, so just kind of moving ahead, we've covered 97, which was Timmy's arguably best individual season in his career. This is a very obscure model, another Aaron Cooper design. This is the 1.0 flight. And if you look closely, you can see on the lateral, Timmy's number 10. And then on the medial side, you can see once again the individually stitched MEE for his grandma. This is a very popular model back in '98. Damon Stoudemire is another player that comes to mind when it comes to the 1.0. Utah Jazz fans, since we're in the NBA Finals, Antoine Carr also happened to wear, in a different colorway, the 1.0 flight. So this is really made for guards, guard style play, encapsulated 4-foot zoom. Aaron Cooper, Aaron loved, low profile zoom. But bigger guys, interestingly, wore it too. But Timmy wore this, interestingly, in a different colorway, but nonetheless in the '98 All Star game, which is arguably one of the greatest All Star games in NBA history. I think there was a very brief sequence where Timmy hit back-to-back three-pointers. He was a great three-point shooter.
Yeah.
Timmy definitely had range, and
And
so
let me point out
nonetheless, yeah.
one thing on this shoe you may have never thought about is that from this view in the front, it almost resembles the mudguard on the 12, the Jordan 12. If you look at it, it's got that angle there, and then the medial one. It's kind of interesting. It kind of resembles it. I didn't never notice that until
Mhm.
you were just holding it.
That's great. Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
interesting. And you brought up Dame. Dame had the purple GR pair, white, gray, purple. Dame had a pair with number 20 on it that a friend of our show, Cole, has that I'm trying to get. So Cole, sell me those. So got to put my plug in. But
Nice.
but Seth,
Okay.
tell people because they may not understand like how rare this item is. Because you see a 1.0 or a Bacon, you may see the originals. You may think, oh yeah, I could buy a Bacon online. But like these are the pairs that were made for the athlete. They have their signature on it. They're player exclusive.
Mhm.
So they're either worn, given away, thrown away, sent to the outlets sometimes. People will get lucky and find them in the outlets, and I've found bought pairs from people who got them that way. But why don't you talk a little bit about, how you got these pairs? 'Cause, they're
Yeah.
relatively impossible to.
Yeah, and Bijan and I have talked about the terms rare and scarce. And I think in terms of PE, particularly vintage PE, it clicks both boxes, rare and scarce. There were not a lot that were made. These were made specifically for the player and the player size. And Timmy and I, interestingly, have the same size split. Timmy wore a 12, 12 and a half, and so do I. Um, this particular pair, I actually own doubles of. I own two pairs of Bakins. They were both international purchases. So many collectors, PE collectors, are abroad. You have to put the time in. You've done it. Remind me again, you've been on eBay since?
2002?
Okay.
I don't even remember.
August of '99 for me. So I just made it. You know what I'm saying? And you've done a lot over the years. You have to put the time in. These don't just pop up. They are out there, but there's not many of them left. And there weren't many to begin with that were produced.
Yeah, the way I look at it is, you have to be doing this for a long time to accumulate pairs like this because they only come up for sale, let's say, once every 10 years. Well, then you have to be in it for 10 years for one to pop up. Even if you just throw money at people,
Sure.
that doesn't mean you could buy a shoe. Like if I wanted to buy this shoe from you, it doesn't matter what I offered you. I know this is like close to your heart, and I know you well enough. So my point is, if you want the shoe, it's not readily available. You have to wait for it to pop up, and that's who knows when.
And that's part of the fun. It's also part of the anxiety producing, and it can be very anxious because you don't know where or when. And then you got to mobilize, and then you got to be ready. What is the saying? Like, if you're already ready, you don't have to get ready.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I got to get ready. But anyway, the point is, and I'm glad that you're shedding light and paying credence to it. These are simply not readily available, and these are all the original vintage product. These pairs are almost 30 years old, and Bijan and I hope I'm in line when I say this, but we're purveyors. We're like guardians. We have to kind of protect this stuff. And
My
so
dad would
anyway,
have thrown.
luckily he didn't. Yeah. But nonetheless, so we talked about the Bacon, we talked about the 1.0 flight, we talked about the Turbulence, which interestingly, technically speaking, none of them are Tim Hardaway signature. Although in my mind, I mean, I could make that association, but technically speaking, there is only one that I'm aware of, Hardaway signature, and that is the Air Zoom T-Bug flight designed by Eric Avar. I own, I think I own two pairs, one GR, one PE. This was an eBay find several years ago from a seller in Iowa. Iowa, there's a huge joke about Iowa, corn country. They pick presidents, so to speak. They're the first ones to go in the caucus, but they also know how to pick and source and find, vintage product. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
There's a lot of antique culture there. I think that's what you're alluding to, not just shoes, but actual like Americana, like
Yep.
antiques.
I love the Americana. This is Americana right here. This is Miami Americana to be because when you see this model, this is Miami. I mean, this is Miami Heat. This is not worn, but it was autographed by Timmy. I only brought one shoe. If you look closely, you could see the number 10 on the tab. Um, Obviously, the MEE once again detailing. The GR pair did not have that. It actually had like a wing flight mid 90s kind of logo, but um, as my friend Steve, Sneaker Tech Talk would say, it's all about the monkey paw articulated technology. I want to be very careful with this, but it really is about what lies beneath. And I would be doing the sneaker disservice by not, if this will cooperate, at least revealing the inner anatomy.
The flair.
So the T-Bug, obviously T-Bug, a nod to Tim Hardaway, his nickname. But what makes the T-Bug flight, and this model has never been retroed, I don't know if it ever will, but it really is about what lies beneath. You could see that, There's a zipper closure to lock in and protect the foot and ankle against rolling, pronation, and such. Um, very, very tight grip, very aesthetic, aerodynamic. At that particular time, everything was becoming zippered. I mean, several pairs at around 97, 98 ish.
I would say the biggest one was probably the glove. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm more partial to the T bug, but I would think, yeah, glove is number. There's in flight glove 97,
When
98.
you think of
Yeah,
a zip up, that's the
yeah.
one that comes to mind.
Yeah, but if that's 1A, then this has to be 1B or 1 and 2. You know, they go almost hand in hand. And like I said, I may be considered biased, partial to Timmy, but and he only had one signature. But I'm sorry, when you look at the total body and the repertoire and the variety of kicks that Timmy wore throughout his career, I would put him higher up on a list.
Well, I think a big thing is just the variety of stuff he wore, the era he wore it. I mean, and then his one signature was like a very unique looking shoe. It almost looks like a dress shoe with a wingtip. It's got these vented cutouts, like a brogue style cutout, and it looks like a wingtip. It's incredible. It's like a dress shoe. And then our friend Goatee would say the audacity to put the monkey paw visible, right?
Mhm,
So the visible monkey paw on both sides. This color, to me, I feel like this color was harder to get because these ones pop up, but I spent many years and I never even found one of these for sale anywhere near my size
mhm,
range. So we'll talk about how I got this one, but essentially this is the model he didn't wear in a game. This is I think it just says white, black, silver on the box. Doesn't even say Volt or neon or whatever you want to call it, but if you unzip, underneath is that bright flash of Volt neon, which is my favorite color. Well, my second favorite color for shoes. I'd say purple's first. But
mhm,
yeah, this is a great color. It's muted on the outside, and then the inside is very bright.
mhm,
So
mhm.
awesome colorway. The
Uh,
way I got this shoe is kind of crazy too, because one
yeah.
of our friends found it in a cheap auction, and he was going to keep it, and I had to basically source another shoe that he wanted more to
Mm,
get them out. So it worked.
mm,
So that's one thing. I'm very good at finding what other people want to try and get what I'm trying to get. Take notes.
yeah.
Okay, so this is a
One
amazing.
one thing to show the camera, the patina is absolutely for me, I love the oxidation. I That's just the natural order of things. That's God's will. There's really nothing you could try to stop it. You could try to slow it down, prevent, but no. I find that to be lovely and beautiful. It adds character. It proves that that model has survived the test of time. We're talking almost 30 years ago. You know what I'm saying? We're pushing 30,
Mhm.
and it's just a lovely model. Very what's the word I'm looking for? Provocative. It's definitely a head turner. The 4 foot lines and curves, just very aggressive yet elegant. Uh, a little bit of the Jordan uh, formal aesthetic. How MJ like to bring the formal aesthetic to the game.
When I think of that, I think of a Jordan 16 Wilson Smith,
Mhm.
that square toe, almost like the Prada style. The square toe and then the patent leather, like the whole goal was to be able to wear it with a suit, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm glad that you brought that colorway. That is a very rare colorway. You're right that I personally have seen more of the black and red than that. And what's the name of the famous wrestler? Owen, is that correct? I
Owen
forgot
Hart.
his name.
Owen Hart.
Owen Hart. Rest in peace, Owen Hart. There is a very famous picture of Mr. Hart many years ago. He was wearing that particular colorway. So, in terms of wrestling history, and there's a huge, that's a complete, I mean, I'm out of my, as Lebowski said, I'm out of my element. But the point is, that is a little bit of, wrestling speaker history as well. So, a lot of athletes showed love to mid 90s Nike basketball, both on and off the basketball court. And the T-Bug flight definitely got some love both then and among purists and hardcore collectors. That's very high up on the list. And it has not been retroed, and I doubt it ever will.
And then so a lot of the history with Timmy, we always think of Miami. Like nobody, I mean, I guess, and Golden State, but like Miami is really like where all this happened, where he had his best years.
Yep.
But he wore the BB4 toward the end of his time in Miami, and that bled over to once he got traded. So he got traded to Dallas. He played there 2001, and then started wearing this particular shoe, which is the BB4 in this white on white color with gunmetal heel cup, and then navy blue springs is the MEE on the side, number 10 medially. This shoe he wore a lot. He wore this shoe from 2001 to 2002, 20 something times. I think 23 times or something like that
Mhm.
between November of '01 to March of '02.
Okay.
And it's actually a significant shoe in his history, which is it's a little bit of minutia, but
Mhm.
he got traded in that time from Dallas
Denver. Was it
to
Denver?
Denver.
Yep.
So that was mid-season. He was wearing this shoe. I believe it was his last game as Maverick and his first game as a
Nugget as a
Nugget.
Nugget? Okay.
Exactly. So he
Okay.
wore this shoe. He played MJ's Wizards in this shoe.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So this is kind of a shoe that he wore a lot of in that season. And we look at this shoe and we don't think like, oh, this is almost 30 years old. But
Yeah.
this is not that far behind these
Sure.
guys. This is 2000, 2001.
Yep.
These are like 97, 98, 99. It's
Yep.
only a few years different. This shoe is vastly different when you look at it
Mm.
compared to the other ones.
Mhm.
Looks far more modern. BB4, very famous for being Vince Carter's sort of iconic pair, but it was initially offered to Kevin Garnett, and Garnett didn't like the shocks, and he thought there wasn't enough forefoot
Mhm.
zoom for his style of play, so he didn't go for them.
Hmm.
But Aaron Cooper designed these like an iconic shoe, I think, for anyone who's anywhere near our age. We
Mhm.
all
Mhm.
really like the BB4. Some people
Yeah.
call them the Boing Boings. The
Mhm.
the commercial, right?
Sure.
The freestyle commercials probably, I mean, it's my favorite Nike commercial ever. I'm sure other people feel that way. I love that
Mhm.
commercial. This pair itself is a size 9 sample of the one that Hardaway would wear. This pair in particular has black dots for the Alpha Project underneath MEE. I'm not sure if the pairs he wore had that or if this was just a sample run. And also the metal stopper or excuse me, the plastic stopper in the arch is
Mhm.
black. So I don't know if the ones he wore was like that. This might have been a sample of to see what it could look like. But anyway, it's kind of an important shoe for his history and
Yeah.
a little bit of minutia, but
Yeah.
it is sort of an important time, his post Miami
Mhm.
time. And then he came back. He actually retired in Denver. He was like,
Mhm.
"I'm out," and then
Yep.
came back the next year, played a little for Indiana, and
Uh-huh.
then officially retired.
Oh, got it.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's sort of an interesting shoe to end it with, I think, because it ties in everything all together.
Mhm.
His good taste in shoes, I would
Yeah.
say, first of all, his branding, the MEP branding, his style, and then a little bit of the history of how his career uh,
Nice.
ended.
So let me ask you, who is the king of the crossover dribble in your mind?
I mean, I think Timmy's the originator, but AI is. I mean, he crossed up Jordan, right? I don't think you can get away from that. What about you?
Fair enough. I'm always been a Sixer fan first. I mean, obviously, I'm torn because, like I said, I think he's originally from Chicago. I have to check, but I think Timmy's from Chicago, and he originated it. That was a part of his flair and his persona and his personality. Early '90s, late '80s, early '90s is when Timmy came up. Um, I also think it could be a cohort generational, issue too. If you really were into NBA basketball in the early '90s and saw Timmy coming up with Golden State, but to answer the question in my mind, I think I may have to go with Iverson from the rap cultural standpoint, really putting it on the world map.
I would add the size of the star too. AI was a huge star. Timmy was a star, but he wasn't
Yeah.
on that AI level.
But let me be clear, I absolutely love Tim Hardaway. He's one of my all-time favorite guards in league history. What he did, he definitely pushed the envelope. He challenged the status quo. He was a little bit of like an Agassi rebel, against the grain, raw, and had a mouth. He had a little bit of he definitely talked that trash and had the game to back it up.
Yeah, and I would say there's not many people that even think of Tim Hardaway in the shoe world. To be honest, he's kind of overlooked
Mhm. Well, hopefully not.
relatively.
Hopefully not anymore.
Not
But
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll keep bringing you guys content like this and do our best to keep you entertained. All right, guys.